Hello, everybody, and welcome to, I believe, the 14th episode of Oakland Tobacconist live here at the shop. We have Matt and Rob and Claudia joining us as well. I'm very excited about this episode. This is a gentleman more than likely you have heard of. His name is Mr. Kirby Allison, and we have a lot to talk about tonight. However, tonight, what I'm going to be lighting up is new in the shop here. It's the Aquitaine by Romacraft, but it is in a limited size. It's a 4.5 by 60 box press, so it's a bit short, but it has quite a bit of a gauge to it. And Romacraft, what they do is they're already more of a boutique line, and they have their portfolio open, and with that, they create limited editions, and this is one of them. So very excited. I have not smoked this yet. How's it going, Eric? Glad to see you on here. Let us know what you're smoking, and if you're pairing a drink, what you're pairing with. As usual, I have my glass of bourbon next to me right here. I've been told that this particular cigar is on the stronger side, and it's definitely what I'm in the mood for. So we got Diaz de Gloria and Knob Creek. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. That's Matt. And then we also have a New World Cameroon. Mike, that is a great selection. Great cigar. AJ's usually the one that I call on point. Now, tonight, with this cigar, it's actually included in a sampler pack that we're running. We were calling it medium to full. It includes our Ash Cat, which is going to be the most mild out of them. But then you have the Diaz de Gloria by AJ Fernandez, the Dama Velada, which when we rated our humidor last year, got Cigar of the Year. We have the Campeon size of the Night Watch, which is a Corojo Shade Grown Maduro. Excellent cigar, excellent flavor, and of course the Mastodon, which I'm smoking tonight. Limited supply. If you'd like to pick up the sampler pack, click on the link in this video. It'll take you to our website, and we'll make sure we get those out for you. Alex is lighting up a JFR Lunatic. Great cigar. I actually just smoked one of those on Monday. Awesome cigar. One of those Nova cigars. Awesome, Eric. And we got the Maduro. Hey, Andy, how's it going? Smoking up the EP Carrillo. Kirby, thank you for saying hi. We're going to get you on here very shortly. This is going to be a very, very special episode because usually we have cigar manufacturers, but this gentleman I've been following for a bit, and I'm very pleased to say that he accepted our request to be on our show. So it's a very special conversation. Thank you for joining us tonight and joining up and lighting up a cigar. As I say, we're going to add Kirby to the episode here, and we'll go ahead and start from there. So please help me welcome Kirby Allison to our channel. Hello, hello.
Well, thanks for having me, Eric, and it's a pleasure to be on and to be able to smoke a cigar in the evening with you.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And I just want to make sure, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you perfectly.
Perfect. Awesome. So, Mr. Allison, as I see that you are a drink in your hand, what are you drinking tonight?
I've got a dry martini up.
Okay.
This is with number 3 gin, a little bit, and then with the twist. So not dirty.
Okay.
Awesome. Nice and clean.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what are you pairing it with? What are you going to have it for as far as the smoke goes?
Well, so I haven't quite decided. I kind of wanted to see maybe what you and everyone watching was thinking. I mean, I'm sure like so many today, I feel like I don't have enough choice in my humidor whenever I open it up, despite having hundreds of cigars. I always feel like I don't have enough of anything to smoke. So I'm always actually quite conflicted whenever I open that thing up. They kind of decide what it is I'm going to smoke. But today I've got a special Romeo and Julieta. This comes from one of their porcelain jars.
Okay.
This is a 38 ring gauge, not quite as long as the Lancero, but still kind of very Lancero-esque, which is one of my favorite formats. And then I've got a Punch Exclusivo de Mexico. This is of course, a regional release, about a 52 ring gauge, a little bit larger, not quite as long.
Okay.
So 2 great cigars. I don't know. Do I go for the special regional? This is the last one I have, or do I go for one of the Romeo and Julietas from my jar?
It's a tough question. What do you think was going to pair better with your gin martini?
Well, everything goes with the gin martini, so it's kind of fun there. I mean, normally I would pair it with a bourbon, but I was feeling like a martini tonight. I think I'm going to go for this Exclusivo de Mexico. Nice special occasion. This is the last of these 2 cigars I have to smoke, and so fitting occasion.
Awesome.
Have you ever used this El Casco cigar cutter?
No, I've never even seen it before.
This is in my opinion, what is the greatest cigar cutter in the world. Shameless self-promote. We've got these on the website, but from a friend of mine in California, I always find myself fumbling to cut cigars, especially with the simple guillotine. This thing is lever action, and it's the smoothest, cleanest cut of any cigar cutter out there. So anyway,
awesome.
I'll throw that out there.
Now with the two different choices that you have and two different ring gauges, I know this is probably a difficult question to answer, but do you have like maybe a favorite gauge or one that you tend to like to smoke more over the others?
Absolutely. So,
sorry, I'll let you go ahead and light up your cigar there.
I know it's like talking with food in your mouth. It's so difficult to... you know, I mean, I would say that I certainly favor the more traditional ring gauges, 38s, 42s, you know, these supersized 48s and 52s and 54s. I find them slightly too large for my taste. They make great cigars, and you're able to get a lot of tobacco into a shorter, a little bit shorter stick. But I just find that they lack a certain elegance, to be clear. And maybe not elegance, maybe refinement is the right word. It could be totally superficial. But I find that, you know, they don't sit as comfortably in the hand. Because it's a larger, you know, cigar to be holding. I just find that, you know, it's a little too large in the mouth also. I don't know.
Well, and I know that you had alluded to or mentioned when we were talking back and forth that you're a fan of Lanceros. Is that a lot to do with flavor profile?
Well, I think the flavor profile of Lanceros are exceptional, right? Because you have that high concentration or that high ratio of wrapper to filler, right? Which is unique to Lancero. But I find it to be a really elegant format. I mean, it fits well in the hand. It's a nice 38 ring gauge. It's comfortable, but it's a long cigar, so you can still get a nice smoke out of it, right? You know, I smoke. People say I smoke relatively fast. I enjoy, you know, primarily smoking in the evening time or whenever I have, you know, a nice commitment of time. I'm not like a quick afternoon, you know, cigar type of guy that's like, I just had lunch. Let me have a quick cigar. I enjoy to really kind of sit down and savor that experience. And so I find that generally I gravitate towards the longer formats, you know. Double Coronas, Churchills, you know, what is it? The, you know, it's going to blank out, but what is it? It's the
Lonsdale.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I've got some Lonsdales I absolutely love. And so I find myself kind of gravitating towards just kind of the longer smokes.
Right. Awesome. Well, for any of those watching, if you have any questions for Kirby or myself, please drop them in the comments. I'll go ahead and pull them. Happy to answer any of your questions as well as what you're smoking this evening. And a question I have actually, Kirby, where are you streaming from right now?
So this is my office. You know, we're based in Dallas. We're in the design district, and you know, my business, you know, formerly the Hanger Project, but KirbyAllison.com. You know, we sell luxury garment care, shoe polish, hangers, other accessories for the well-dressed online. And so this is where we kind of do all of that. You know, I've always been particularly fascinated with kind of the lifestyle element, the well-dressed, if you will, and cigars is such a part of that.
Right.
And so whenever I built this office, it was a goal of mine to be able to smoke at work inside, because I feel like, you know, one of the most, you know, elegant places to smoke is indoors. It's so difficult to find a place to smoke indoors these days. I said, you know what, this is my office. I want to be able to smoke inside.
Right.
And so I kind of got, you know, a rudimentary air filtration system, but we can talk about it later. I'm working on a whole new air filtration system for my next office. I'm pretty excited.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Now, I'm assuming in your office, since you're smoking there, you also have your humidor there as well, or one of them?
Yeah, so the humidor is right in the back corner.
Okay.
You can see right here a little cabinet, you know, humidity controlled and temperature controlled. And temperature controlled because at our previous warehouse, we had our HVAC units stolen twice in the mid of summer.
Oh, and wow.
I had to basically, after medevacing my cigars twice, I said, maybe it's time to invest in something that can actually control the temperature.
Definitely. So we have one question from Eric here, wondering if you're much of a hat guy, and do you have a place where you pick up your hats?
I'm a huge hat guy. I love hats. Great hat, by the way.
Thank you.
And, I'm a big fan of Optimo hats in Chicago. Graham
Okay.
Thompson, who owns Optimo, is a friend of mine, and they're probably one of the greatest hatters here in the United States, and probably one of the greater, if not best, hatters in the world. They do a lot of great stuff. 100% silver belly felt hats. Everything's basically made to order.
Right.
So I'm not a big, I would say that in Texas, I probably don't have that much of an opportunity to wear a hat. But whenever I travel to like New York or London, any place I'm spending time outside, I almost exclusively take a hat with me.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We recently, there's a place here called 10th Street Hats, and that's where I normally get mine from. Really good hat shop. We have another question from there's
1944. Is that the one?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I bought. My wife is from Mexico City.
Okay.
We just took a little kind of weekend getaway. It was a one-nighter. I've got 3 children, so it's difficult to get away for an extended period of time. So we took an overnight to Mexico City, and there's 2 La Casa del Habanos in Mexico City. And so, we're always kind of in and around the Polanco area. And so there's one right on the main street of Polanco. Generally, I would say I've been pretty disappointed with their selection. But I don't know if it's just because of COVID. Maybe their sales are down or something. But this last time I went, they had an unbelievable selection of cigars. I mean, one of the best I've ever seen. They had a lot of the Ramon Ayones limited editions, the number 2s from 2019. I mean, you can't find those things in London. And so, they had a lot of really nice vintage stock. I got a box of some añejos. What was it? Were they punch? I have to pull this out. Probably not punch. I think it's anyway. I'll pull it out in a second. From 2011, I think. Wow, 10 years of age on them. So I kind of went a little bit crazy. You can kind of see it on my Instagram profile.
Yeah. Well, and it looks like we got Chip asking a question that wondering about the Davidoff Cubans that Edward sent you. Did you have a chance to try them?
Well, so why don't we just jump straight to bucket list cigars, right? The Sahakians are good friends of mine. We've had the privilege of really filming with them, and the Sahakians probably have one of the greatest humidors in the world, right? And not just their humidor you can walk into as a customer. It's amazing. I mean,
they even have they have an aging vault as well, right?
Well, they have an aging vault, and so we actually have a video on our YouTube channel.
Yeah,
they pulled out some of their basically private reserve humidors. I mean, these are humidors that they'll never sell. I mean, it was like I bought this at an auction with Fidel Castro, and he signed it. I mean, crazy, absolutely crazy stories with these humidors. I mean, it's everything I love. But they've got a lot of old vintage Cuban Davidoff stock, and so they were very kind during the kind of the lockdowns and everything to send a 1990s Cuban Davidoff number 2, and I've never smoked anything that old ever.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have to say it was a really interesting smoke. I mean, that's pushing 30 years of age on a cigar. I mean, that's a lot of time to age a cigar. And it was, I think the only analogy I could really come up with is vintage champagne. I mean, anyone that's had champagne and then drunk vintage champagne, it's like night and day. I mean, they call them both champagne. They like misrepresent the vintage champagne. I mean, everything's different about it. I mean, it's more subtle. It has a completely different flavor profile. I mean, everything about it's different, and that's the only way to describe that Davidoff number 2. I mean, it was soft, it was subtle, it had a softness to it is the only way to describe it. I mean, it had been aging for 30 years. I mean, the flavors were very mellow, right? And very soft, but it was a big cigar. I mean, it was number 2. I mean, quite long, 7.5 or something. Smaller ring gauge, right? 1990s. Yeah. But I have to tell you, by the end of that cigar, I was like, I had to, take a break. I mean,
ready for a nap.
It was a pre-91 Davidoff. That's right, Matthew. So, I mean, it was a proper Cuban, Davidoff before they really transitioned all their production to.
Right. So kind of backtracking a little bit, and I've heard some of your story, but really, what was the beginnings of your channel and kind of this exploration into the well-dressed gentleman, and where did that all begin?
Well, for me, the channel ultimately is a manifestation of me, right? I mean, it's like me and who I am and kind of my journey and weirdness. And I've always been fascinated by the nostalgia of being able to have something made today, really much in the same tradition that it's always been made. It's one of the reasons I'm really lured towards cigars. I mean, it's the same principle. It's like you can buy a hand-rolled cigar that's hand-rolled, 100% cultivated by hand, made in Cuba, exactly the same way today as it was 100 years ago. I mean, where else can you find that in modern society? Like, there's a certain romance. And so I've always been drawn towards those values of quality, craftsmanship, and tradition. I mean, for anyone that's watched the channel, it's really kind of driving the stake into the ground right there, because I repeat that all the time. But that really kind of is the fundamental, thesis behind what was the Hanger Project. The Hanger Project, I graduated college. I took all my graduation money and bought my first custom suit, and it came on a plastic hanger. And it just seemed so disappointing that it was like, wow, I just took all my graduation money. I had someone make this by hand. They measure B, this, that, and the other. And it's on a plastic hanger that doesn't even fit, right?
Yeah.
That was really the genesis. And so the Hanger Project literally started out as the Hanger Project. It was a personal project to see if I could have better hangers made.
Okay.
And I joke, we got started basically as a group buy, where, I kind of bundled a bunch of orders together and then placed it in the manufacturer, because I didn't have money to speculate. And I certainly didn't think it was a business. And so I joked that, really the better idea would have been Kickstarter. Had I really taken from that the idea of Kickstarter, I'd be in a much different place right now. Instead, I got into the retail business, which, as you know, is certainly a more difficult path towards the finer things in life.
Right. Okay. And I know a large portion of it too. I mean, you've talked about like suits and cigars and stuff, but also with shoes and like shoe shining and situations like that.
Well, the shoes were kind of my gateway drug, if you will, right?
Okay.
So if you look at anyone's kind of development and progression, kind of in the journey of just menswear or bespoke, it's actually inversed with bespoke, but let's just take the journey of menswear. In college, I was wearing jeans, a button-up shirt. I was never dressed in a suit in college. And so shoes was that first kind of entry point for me.
Okay.
It's the cheapest thing I could buy. I mean, you could buy a nice pair of shoes for $200-300. Whereas if you wanted a suit, you were talking thousands. And then shirts, I mean, same thing. I mean, you could buy a nice shirt, maybe for the same cost as a pair of shoes, but I mean, you could get way more use out of the pair of shoes.
Right.
And so I've always loved shoes. Again, even, just ready to wear stuff's beautiful. I mean, it's sculpture, you shine it, it evolves. I mean, it's just, there's something about a really well-made pair of shoes that you can only experience. Like, you can't understand it until you've seen it or worn it.
Okay.
But then whenever you kind of go up that ladder to bespoke, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, the quality, craftsmanship, and tradition of a handmade pair of shoes still to this day blows my mind. That you can have a pair of shoes made, sculpted for you, by a person, by an individual.
Right.
And then you wear them, and, it's, again, I mean, until you've worn a bespoke pair of shoes, it's hard to really describe. I mean, it's like, the best analogy I've kind of come up with is that I would imagine it's the difference between driving a BMW M3 and a Ferrari. They're both incredible cars. I mean, a BMW M3 is amazing. I'd love to own one. I mean, fast, agile. I mean, that's a really high-end pair of ready-to-wear shoes. But then you get in a Ferrari, and my battery's going dead. But you get in a Ferrari, and it's still a great car, but every characteristic is just amplified. And so a bespoke pair of shoes is lower to the ground, right? So you feel the ground better. It fits closer. It's tighter. I mean, it's just is more agile. It's more sculpted.
Right.
And, if you're buying a Ferrari, you're probably picking the paint color. You're talking about how you want the seats made. I mean, it's like all that customization that you get at that level.
Right.
You don't necessarily get in an M3. Now, one isn't better than the other, right? I think that one of the mistakes that people make and I'm a huge, opponent of this mistake and fallacy, is that they get moral about it. Like one's better than the other.
Oh, yeah.
If you can't wear bespoke shoes, like that's not good. I'm absolutely not like that. I think that, it should be the best you can afford. And whatever that is, whatever you're passionate about, like that's the best for you, right? Regardless of what the best is for someone else. The same is true for cigars. I mean, whether or not you're buying $8 cigars or $80 cigars, I mean, they're all great cigars if you enjoy them. So it's important not to get moral about it. I think one of the things that I think is a mistake where people probably judge us too quickly on the channel is that if it's not the best, I'm not interested in it. And it couldn't be any farther from the fact.
Okay. Definitely. Well, and I mean, a big thing that we're doing here at the shop, and we just created like a membership for it as well, is the encouragement of aging cigars, letting them rest in your own humidor. I remember in the beginning when I first started smoking cigars a lot, I got a hold of a small desktop humidor, and a lot of the allure to me is I had heard the concept of you can age a cigar and certain aging peaks will make it mature and make it more refined. And kind of how you're saying,
I'm listening. Give me a moment.
No worries. Kind of how you were saying with the with like the history and the craftsmanship, when you have 300 hands rolling a cigar, then you continue that own history within your own collection of aging it, letting it become even better. It's a part of the whole experience.
Yeah, it's part of the experience. It's part of the journey. I mean, someone only ages cigars that's passionate about them. Right? The same way that someone only ages wine that's passionate about them. But again, one of the things that I love about aging cigars is it doesn't necessarily cost more money to age a cigar. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
The cigar costs the same. Now you have to like endow your collection, which is kind of what I call it. Like, you have to endow it. So, to start, you've got to buy more cigars than you can smoke because they've got to sit around for a few years.
Right.
But after you do that for, 5 years, well, then the new stuff you're buying is going at the end of the line, and the stuff that's been sitting around for a few years, like you're smoking. And after that initial kind of build-up phase, the endowment, whenever you kind of constitute that collection of cigars, then everything you're smoking is so much better. Yeah.
Now, I know I when I had asked you about like kind of where your palate is and what you like to smoke, are you exclusively Cuban smoking, or do you smoke tons of different cigars?
I don't want to say that I'm exclusively Cuban.
Okay.
But I would say that I'm certainly predominantly Cuban.
Okay.
Again, I think that Cubans make some of the best cigars. Now, you end up with all quality control issues, right? Because, I mean, we know there's a ton of quality control problems with Cuba. There's the pricing consideration where I think in order to get really good, consistent Cuban cigars, you've got to be buying these limited edition releases and everything. They're expensive, right?
Yeah.
I'm not smoking a cigar a day. So like I can afford to say, you know what? I don't smoke as many cigars as maybe the next person. So I would prefer to maybe spend a little bit more money. Smoke something nicer. So that, I mean, I'm a big fan of Padrones. I'm a big fan of, All My Fathers. I mean, it was a cigar aficionado. Well, it wasn't. It was a Toro that was one of their cigar aficionado cigar of the year. But they have a fantastic Lancero.
Right.
An amazing cigar.
And it's funny you bring up the My Father line, because they had in 2015 they released the Bijou 22 Maduro. And that was one of the best successes I've had with aging. I let it sit for about 4 years. And some of that, like when it has those dark cocoa notes that might be perceived as bitter, really got more sweet, or it got more creamy. And it got sometimes Maduros with the strength, where even if someone's palate is more in that full-bodied side, is somewhat rustic sometimes. Whereas when you age it, it really kind of becomes more refined and more smooth.
Yeah, it blends. It's more refined. I mean, there's two things that I have to say I really dislike about cigars, right? I don't have a very refined palate. I would say I have, honestly, a lot of trouble kind of differentiating flavors. I mean, if you ask me to describe a cigar, it's pretty one-dimensional. Like it smokes well or it doesn't. I'm not like, I picked up on like the dry earth, Like, I wish I could. My wife has an incredible nose and palate. Like she could probably do that. I can't. For me, it's really all about the mouthfeel. How smooth is it? How does it feel in the mouth? Is it is it too harsh? Is there too much pepper or spice that just kind of shocks the mouth? And then I think one of the biggest criteria for me is, how do I feel the next day? I mean, like the next morning, do I feel like I smoked a freaking ashtray or something? That mouth is like just terrible. And generally speaking, I find with cheaper cigars, it just really blanches the mouth. And the next day, your palate is burnt. I mean, I don't know. It could just be the wrong cigars. I mean,
and again, everyone's palate is different and changing. As you mentioned, your wife, does she smoke cigars?
No. And you know what? To be totally honest, I don't know if I'd want my wife to smoke cigars. You know, I mean, she's very generous in tolerating cigar smoke.
Okay.
I mean, she'll go with me to a cigar bar. You know, we'll have drinks and dinner, but she's not smoking a cigar.
Okay. No, I do have a question here in the studio. Rob was wondering, with kind of cigar smoke and fashion together, do you find that the smoke really clings to some of your suits, and is there a remedy for that? If so,
it's a great question, and I get that all the time because, you know, I shine shoes in a suit, I smoke cigars in a suit. I mean, it's kind of my uniform. I find that if you're wearing something that's made of natural fiber, the odor doesn't cling. And really, all you need to do is allow your garment to kind of air out, you know, hang it outside your closet. You know, don't stuff it back in the middle of your closet. Allow it to air a little bit. And it releases, I mean, those wools, you know, I mean, wool, I mean, again, natural animal fibers, wool, I mean, really wool, cashmere, I don't know what else there is, you know. I find releases those odors. I mean, your shirts, you're going to dry clean anyway at some point. So like, you know, even if it clings, you're going to wash that out. So I've never had that problem. Yeah.
Now, do you know much about like the evolution of the smoking jacket and how that kind of came about and what the principle is, I guess?
Well, I mean, the principle of a smoking jacket is really, again, helping prevent that buildup of smoke odor on your garments. Right. So traditionally, you know, smoking, you know, would oftentimes be done at home, you know, while entertaining. And so you'd slip on a smoking jacket, you'd take it off your suit jacket, hang it somewhere else, put on a smoking jacket, and that's a smoke cigar. I feel that, unfortunately, and you know what, the Turks actually have smoking little caps that you can wear also to prevent your hair from smelling like smoke. And again, it's all about the smoke not building up. You know, it's a little antiquated in my opinion. I mean, if someone walked into a cigar shop with a smoking jacket on, you look at them a little weird. You know, I mean, sometimes whenever I used to go smoke, I had an old trench coat that I'd wear. Just to not tip off my wife whenever I went home. So, you know, if you've got someone at home that's particularly sensitive towards your smoking, then, you know, throw on a jacket or something that you can leave in your trunk, and it really kind of resolves that problem.
Now, if you don't mind sharing, because I've actually never been to the Davidoff Lounge in London, and what's that experience like? I mean, you're walking into a cigar shop that not only has elegance, but lots of history behind it, and a lot of, I mean, people that have come through that smoked it and historical figures. Like, what is that really like?
Well, you know what? I mean, someone asked me how I met the Sahakians, I think. How great are the Sahakians? I mean, the Sahakians, I mean, I idolize these people, right? I mean, I think that they represent a real old school merchant class, right? That you don't find anymore, right? So Sahakians are owners, operators, right? So, you know, pretty much anyone can walk into Davidoff of London and one of the Sahakians is there, Edward or Eddie. I mean, more often than not, they take the time to get to know their clients. They're incredibly approachable and friendly. You know, they're more than happy to walk you into the humidor. Now, the rest of their staff is incredibly knowledgeable and talented, but to be able to walk into a place and to be able to connect with someone like Edward Sahakian, that's a legend in the industry, or Eddie, you know, is, you know, really following in his father's footsteps, and to just see how comfortable they make everyone. They're not pretentious. They're friendly. I mean, you know, if you sit in the Davidoff store, you know, they've got 2 sampling chairs that you can sit there and kind of sample a cigar. In many ways, it's almost a parade of friends, right? over the years, they've gotten to know so many of their clients and customers. And so that to me, I think really exemplifies the best of London, of shopping in London.
Okay.
It's really unique in my experience to London. You don't find it quite like that in Paris or at all, to be completely honest. And you don't find that anywhere else. I mean, if you walk into a Davidoff of London store in New York City, you just get a bunch of sales clerks that you don't know how long they've been there. I mean, you're walking into the and meeting the person that's like, yeah, I've owned this store for 30 years.
Right.
For 40 years in the case of Edward Sahak.
Yeah. Well, and I believe one of the videos that I ran across with you doing was that you lit a cigar together, I believe, off a cedar staves, and cedar spills. And what was really interesting to me is that he's lighting the cigar, and it's completely lit, and then he hands it to you, and you're ready to smoke it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes back to, you know, how they really embellish the ritual of smoking cigars. I mean, they're Iranian. I mean, they're Persian. They're from Iran. And like all of the history of that country, I mean, they were merchants, you know, since really the beginning of time.
Yeah.
You know, they really know how to like ritualize that experience in a way that I'd say, in fact, enhances it.
Right.
You know, drinking beer from a nice mug versus drinking beer from a plastic cup, it could be the same beer, but it's two different experiences, right? Having someone pour it for you just perfectly and serve it to you correctly, you know, certainly I feel like enhances that experience.
Yes.
And the Sahakians are masters at that craft.
Yeah, and I often, even my like personal experiences, I'll have a cigar, first cigar that I have, and have an experience associated, and it's somewhat different to me after, depending on the environment, the people I'm talking to. To me, it plays a role in the. I don't know if you're familiar with Nick Melillo's company called Foundation Cigars. Foundation, he originally blended for larger companies, but as he puts it, smoking is more of a ceremony, as it were. You're smoking with history and a basically, as you say, a ritual or ceremony behind the entire experience.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think the Sahakians say it best is that, you know, really smoking a cigar is a commitment to time. It's either time with yourself or time with other people. And so I personally find it impossible to really disassociate those environmental characteristics from the cigar itself. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, other people may just be like totally about the product. Nothing else matters. I mean, for me, if I'm smoking a cigar, it's a little bit of a special occasion. I mean, even if it's just a daytime smoke, I'm taking time out from my day to smoke a cigar, right? That's special. And so I think that, you know, we've all had pinnacle smokes. I mean, we've all had pinnacle cigars.
Right.
I can't think of a single cigar that I would put in that bucket of a pinnacle experience that wasn't associated with an experience or people somewhere. And that, I think, you know, is what makes it special. Right.
Now, as you're lean towards more Cuban cigars, is there something in particular about Cuban tobacco that you find that really like hits the palate for you? Like, I mean,
you know, back to my first two characteristics, I feel like a good Cuban cigar, on average, isn't going to ash the mouth, right? I feel good the next day. I don't wake up feeling like I need to, I don't know, gargle mouthwash. I find them to be, you know, slightly mellower. I mean, you know, I feel like a lot of the Dominican and Ecuadorian stuff, you've got harsher flavors, more pepper. I could be wrong, right? So, you know, let me know what your opinion is on that. And I just find that for my palate, I don't generally enjoy those.
Yeah.
A great example is like, you know, the Padron 1926s versus the 1954s. I find the Maduros difficult to smoke now.
Okay.
I mean, they're too dark. They're too strong. It's too harsh. Maybe they just need to be put away, you know, for 5 years. You know, whereas the 1956s or whatever, and I could be mixing 64s.
Yeah.
You know, have more refinement to them out of the box.
Okay.
And so if I was to smoke a Padron, I would go for the 64. I think they're all cigars. I don't know if I really enjoyed the box press. I mean, I can appreciate it. It's a fantastic cigar. But again, I don't know, just it lacks a certain nuance to it.
Okay.
Something that's not box pressed.
Yeah. Now, out of your, I know you kind of mentioned like bucket list cigars and such. Do you have certain Cuban brands that you really enjoy over the others?
I've always been a big Bolivar guy, for whatever reason. Again, no particular reason other than it probably was one of my first Cuban cigars.
Okay.
I like the brand. I like the history. And so I've always found myself smoking, predominantly Bolivars. It's where I've begun. I've started to diverge and kind of expand my collection over the years. Even in formats, I find myself smoking more Robustos, right? I find myself smoking more often in the afternoon, where a double Corona or Churchill or something's like way too much cigar. I just want a nice simple Robusto.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting how that's developed and kind of evolved.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I know I've only smoked a handful of Cubans here and there. But the first time I smoked a Bolivar, actually in Chip's watching, he had given it to me, and it was without a label. And he had said, "Hey, where's this from?" And I started smoking it, and I thought off the bat it was Nicaraguan, because out of the Cubans I've had, there is more nuance and subtlety to some of the ones I've had. This one was a bit more rich, and a bit more forward in its flavors. And smoking it through, I was like, man, this is a really good cigar. And then find out it's Bolivar, and they make fantastic cigars. I don't know if you've tried the counterpart, the non-Cuban version of those, and if the experience is any different.
I can't say I've ever blind tasted those and compared them.
Okay.
So
okay.
Reserve making a unfair judgment.
Right.
Again, there's a lot of great cigars. I don't really have a tobacco shop here in Dallas that I frequent. You guys, in Oakland, to have a tobacconist like you all that is able to really engage and embellish, the enthusiasm, I think is not all that common. So it's something that, of course, all your customers, I hope, don't take for granted.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I'll draw the analogy back to tailoring, right? Just because that's my world.
Right.
A great tailor is someone that is able to really guide and advise their client, like any professional, like a doctor, like a dentist, lawyer. And so I think that a truly great tobacconist is someone that you could say, look, these are a few cigars I enjoy. They could go make recommendations, and you would be very happy with them.
Yeah, definitely. Now, in your experience with smoking cigars, have you ever gravitated towards the pipe? Have you ever tried much of pipe tobacco before?
I haven't. And on one of my next trips to London, the Sahakians say that they will teach me how to smoke a pipe.
Okay.
It hasn't happened yet. I hope it does.
A big difference that I see for the cigar smoker or the pipe smoker is typically the smoking a pipe is really rewarding for people who like the process of packing your pipe, aerating it, tamping it. And a lot of people who don't necessarily enjoy the pipe are ones who prefer to light up, kind of just relax, take it easy, not have to pay too much attention. But those who like that process, it becomes a very rewarding situation.
Yeah. I have a good friend, that is based in New York. And in a moment here, I'm going to have to go find a cable for my phone. So forgive me for
no worries.
That out beforehand. So we'll let that be your commercial break. But I have a friend that I smoke cigars with. He's based in New York, Alex Petrosian. So he's of the Petrosian caviar family. Huge cigar smoker, right? Of course, you would expect that.
Yeah.
And so, he's tried to smoke pipes, right? He's got, I've got a absinthe fountain over here that he sent me, and it's like he's all into the ritual.
Yeah.
We were smoking last week, and we were kind of joking that, there's kind of a season for everything, and that, with 3 kids and, he's got children, that the season, of life for really smoking pipes is, once the children are out of the house and you have more time. Because there is a ritual to that. You've got to get it right. And, there's certainly more time involved.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we got a question from Eric here. Bow tie or regular tie, is there a preference? I'm assuming that's more occasion based.
Yeah, I think so. There's certain men that just enjoy the bow tie. I think there's a certain dandyism to that, where like, if you're a man that's dressing up in a suit regularly, you're already kind of self-selecting yourself as slightly, in a, like a, what would you call it? Kind of an alt culture, if you will.
Okay.
Bow ties are even farther left, right, or farther,
Okay.
outside the norm. And so I wear ties, right? I mean, in Texas, if I was dressing around in a bow tie, I mean, who knows what people would think of me? Probably be on the street or something. The people that I know that really kind of pull off bow ties, for them, it's something they wear to church, right? So it's like their Sunday bow tie. They wear it to church. It's an opportunity to kind of make that a special experience, and to elevate or heighten that a little bit. So that's kind of what I see with bow ties. I think doctors can pull bow ties off. If you're a lawyer, and if you're someone that's really interested in kind of like setting an identity that's very specific, a bow tie is a great way to do that, because you wear a bow tie and you're immediately standing out, right? And if you carry that with confidence, and if you do it consistently enough, I think that could be a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and sort of the knowing of those fashion statements, or being the well-dressed gentleman, or sort of that, where does that education come from? Is that paying attention to like the cultural shifts? Like, where exactly is that? Stay up to date, I guess, because I know it's an ever-changing situation.
It's a good question. It's a hard one to answer. I mean, at the end of the day, I think, I'm a big fan of classic menswear, right? So that's a little tradition and history, not fashion, right?
Okay.
I think that's really important. I mean, we are like anti-fashion here at Kirby Allison. Like, we're the anti-fashion people. Like, I mean, give me a gray suit and a black tie, and it's like a white shirt, and I'm happy. I'm a pig in mud. And so I don't know. I mean, I think it's important to take, it's important to take your company and the context into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
I dress more formally whenever I travel to New York and London.
Okay.
Than I do even whenever I'm in Paris, and certainly more so than whenever I'm here in Dallas. You guys are in California. I mean, to see someone, wearing a button-up shirt and a jacket is probably out of the ordinary.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think it's important to be mindful of one's context and environment. I mean, I think any gentleman, really strives not to make people uncomfortable. And so, if you wore like a tuxedo to work, I mean, everyone would be like, "What are you doing?" And so I think it's important not to be that guy.
Okay.
Unless, you really want to be, in which case I say more power to you.
Yeah. Well, and I know, so for different industries, there are different like things you're paying attention to, or things that maybe get under your skin. Here at the cigar shop and the tobacco shop, one thing that I'll notice is that, like, when someone's like, "Hey, I want to try a really special cigar," so you make a recommendation, they light it up, and then they smoke maybe a quarter of it or a third of it, and they'll put it out and leave. To me, that just kills me inside, because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such a good cigar. Is there similar situations when it comes to fashion or such like that?
Absolutely. Let me tell you my greatest pet peeve of them all, right?
Okay.
You see a man, that is shaved. We'll get to that in a moment. Put on a suit and a tie, but is wearing, I call them clown shoes. And we've all seen them. They're like, $60 shoes with rubber soles. They look like bricks. And I just think that, the adage that a woman always notices a man's watch and shoes first exists for a reason, right?
Yeah.
It's not because she was some superficial, pretentious, woman, that was like, judging you. Of course, all people judge you. But it's because those are like certain touches that if you know that you are paying attention to those things, you have probably paid attention to all the others. And there's a great analogy I'll give you that I think really drove this home for me. I have kind of a friend of my brother's that I met once who, I don't know, was working for some like Raytheon or some defense contracting company. They did a lot of work in Washington, D.C., right? So you're dealing with the military, very traditional. You're dealing with a lot of people of power, and they're entrusting you with huge budgets and a lot of responsibility. And this friend of mine, like the friend of my brother's, was kind of the protege, if you will, of a more senior person in his company.
Okay.
And one day, it sounds weird, he took this friend into his closet and pointed to something on the floor, which were basically 2 black spots, right? And he said, "You know what? Do you know what these are?" And he was like, "I have no idea what that is. Why am I in your closet? This is really weird." And he said, "This is where every day for the last 30 or 40 years, I've shined my shoes every morning," right? So it's the brush, brushing the shoes and the polish wearing off on the carpet.
For 40 years.
For 40 years, for his entire career, every morning he polished his pair of shoes before he went out that morning. And he said, if there's one thing that I can leave you with, right, it is to mind the details, and especially the details of your shoes. Because in this business, if you have a well-shined pair of shoes, and if you were able to take the time every morning to shine your pairs of shoes, then you can be trusted. And so, I don't know, maybe that's unfair. But I think, again, minding those kind of peripheral details, you've got to have everything in between those details right to even get to that point.
Yeah.
And I think with men with shoes, they so often overlook their shoes, and it's totally ruins everything else. It's like, and you don't have to go buy like a $3,000 pair of shoes or an $800 pair of shoes. I mean, what I tell people is buy a used pair of Allen Edmonds on eBay and polish the things. Polish them. Keep them well shined. You could own one pair of shoes for the rest of your life, like the Duke of Edinburgh, who just passed away. I mean, the kind of the legend is that he still wore up until his death the pair of shoes he got married in. Now, he had other people to shine them for him, right?
Right.
The point is that if you invest in quality and if you take care of it, it can last forever. And that, again, goes back to the fundamental thesis of the Hanger Project, is that if you're truly someone that is passionate about craft, you have to learn how to take care of it, because that's what allows you to invest in it.
Yeah.
And cigars, I'll bring it back to cigars. I mean, if you want to age cigars, or if you want to invest in nice cigars, but you don't know how to age them, if your humidor's at the wrong temperature, if you don't keep them in the right humidity, I mean, you're going to ruin your cigars. What's the point?
Yeah.
And so, minding those details is what allows you to really enjoy that.
Right. We got a question from Joe saying that when you do you keep a few cigars with you when you're out of the office, or when you're out somewhere? Is there a particular cigar that you like to take with you?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I mean, I feel like I'm either split between home and work, and so I've recently started keeping a small Boveda bag at home with a few cigars.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and Boveda, I mean, just the compactness, it just makes it more.
I mean, Boveda to me is a game changer, because they really simplified and stupefied the act of aging. I mean, aging is really difficult. I mean, the number of cigars I've ruined, to kind of figure out how to properly age, I prefer not to think about. And Boveda really took the guesswork out of that. I think it's one of the greatest kind of innovations within smoking, the tobacco.
Right.
So I will I keep some cigars at home. So if a friend calls and that's like having an opportunity to go smoke, or if I want to go smoke outside, I have a cigar with me. Of course, I've got all my cigars here at the office. But I find that, maybe if I travel on a trip, I always take cigars with me. If I travel to London, I don't, because the first thing I do is I go to Davidoff and we'll buy a few. It's part of the ritual. I mean, it's part of the experience of going to London for me, is buying cigars. And I'll keep those with me as I kind of travel through Paris. Smoke them there. And, I mean, cigars in London are really expensive, so it's like not how I fill my humidor, really. That's like something I can only get there. And I'll keep a variety of formats. I'll keep some long cigars, for long evenings with friends where we're going to spend, 2 hours, plus hanging out, drinking, smoking, enjoying each other's company. I want a long cigar for that. I hate prematurely finishing my cigar before I'm done with the evening. It's like, I mean, it's such a letdown to me. I'm certainly not beyond smoking 2 cigars in an evening, but for me, if I can smoke 1 cigar the entire evening, I prefer to do that.
Well, now with your
I'm gonna stop you one moment. take a little commercial break. I'm embarrassed. Well, I'll take the phone with me. I got to go to my car and grab my charger.
Okay.
I thought I had it in my office.
No worries.
But I don't. And
Well,
I'm kind of looking around here, and these stupid Apple charging cables. You never have them need them.
Yeah.
For a second.
No worries.
The beauty of the phone is I can take it with me.
Right.
Got 5% left, so I still have time.
No worries.
Nice evening here in Dallas.
What's the temperature out there?
It's a little muggy right now, I must say. They say in Texas, if you don't like the weather, wait until tomorrow. And we're like all over the place. I mean, so it's a little warm and muggy. Hopefully that blows up here.
Well, and as Kirby is looking at getting his charger,
I'm really embarrassed.
A chance to. The link in this video will direct you to our sampler pack that we are running tonight. If you want to go ahead and pick up the Roma Craft that I'm smoking tonight, which is great. It's got deep notes of espresso and coffee and a little bit of caramel in the back end, a little bit of chocolate as well. It's in the sampler pack. Click on the link that will direct you to our website, or even join our Cigar Society. We send out a 5-pack of a single blend every month, and you'll have the opportunity to smoke it with us on Instagram and then age the rest, and kind of learn that process of aging cigars and bringing them to the next level. When you have a cigar at one point and you age it many years properly, it really brings it to life. It's an experience.
Yeah. Next time we do this, you got to send me some cigars. We'll smoke it together.
Definitely. So, and the question I was going to have is, when you are having a drink as well as a cigar, are there certain pairings that you look for, or have you had certain pairings that have just absolutely worked that you try to go back to, or what's your thought process behind it?
Well, I mean, I feel like with smoking cigars, there's a few kind of pinnacle pairings. One of them, of course, is bourbon or Scotch. I find that I'm more of a bourbon guy than a Scotch guy.
Okay.
I find Scotch too difficult for me the next day.
Okay.
And so bourbon, I enjoy the sweetness. It's fuller bodied. It's a little bit more well-rounded than your traditional Scotch. So that's probably where I go to more often than not.
Okay. We had Curtis Bailey just join us, that he made it on. He is a resident regular here. He's actually one of the first people that walked into our doors. And he's also what we have dubbed Whiskey Batman, in the sense that we do pairing nights. We'll do a special cigar, something that's really either exclusive or out of the ordinary or very special, and we'll pair it with a cognac, a bourbon, a Scotch. And so he's normally the gentleman we go to ask for, okay, here's our flavor notes on the cigar. What do you think we should pair it with? One we have not, Chip had just released, had said about Redbreast. We did actually do a tasting night with a Redbreast Irish whiskey. We haven't been quite brave enough to do a peated Scotch yet. That's a very particular palate. I'm a fan of peated Scotch, but it is pretty strong for some people.
My recommendation with peated Scotch, which, before I really went the bourbon route, I was a big peated Scotch guy. And this goes back to kind of rituals. It's a little sacrilegious. I'd say that with a single large ice cube is the best way to enjoy at least a peated Scotch, in my opinion.
Okay.
Hit a little bit of the edge off. Peated Scotches are typically a little bit higher in alcohol.
Right.
Than the others.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of need to blunt that a little bit. And then the other thing is that, the slow dilution of the Scotch produces this evolution of flavors that to me is very, very interesting. I mean, it's very, very, I don't know. I mean,
it kind of brings out those delicate notes instead of just fire forward or fire forward.
And you don't get that if you're not kind of adding water. Now, some people will be like, we'll do it with droppers. I mean, it's a little too it's a little too scientific for me. But I pretty much always drink with an ice cube. It's kind of like wine. I mean, there's nothing more annoying than wine served at the wrong temperature. And to me, any type of spirit that's at room temperature is just going to blow your mouth out of the water.
Okay. Do you, when you said you like peated scotches, do you have any distilleries that?
Well, Lagavulin one of my favorite. Ardbeg is another one of my favorite. I mean, to me, one of the most beautiful peated scotches is the Ardbeg Ugadale. And, that has one of the most sophisticated cascade of flavors, this bouquet that Matthew's talking about. Really, any of the scotches I've tasted, I mean, the flavor profile when you begin and the flavor profile where you begin or end is dramatically different. And that evolution, to me, is what creates the journey. I mean, it's like you're sitting down, you're enjoying this. Why not have it evolve over the course of drinking?
Right.
I enjoy that. I enjoy that about a nice cigar. I mean, I always find that whenever I first light up a cigar, it needs a little bit of time to warm, to kind of blend and kind of really seat into itself. Maybe that's the first third, kind of the second third is really building. And then a lot of times that first third can be one of the best kind of experiences. Not with all cigars. I mean, if it's plugged and you're constantly relighting it, that's annoying.
Right.
But, there's some cigars that I'm like, it's practically burned my fingertips off. I want to give them.
Yeah. It's a finger burner. A really good peated scotch. And I think that the distillery of Lafroig has this reputation for a good reason that it's very aggressive. It's very peat heavy. But they do a version called Lafroig Lore, which is really good. And it's a bit more delicate than some of their like 10-year and such like that. It's an awesome, it's definitely a good one.
Well, I think that I think again, if anything is a little has too much fire, out of the gate, there's some ice on it. I mean, these purists that are like, you can't drink your scotch with ice. I mean, look, more power to you if you like to take it neat. I like to have it a little bit chilled. I enjoy my wine a little bit on the cold side.
Okay. Yeah. So a few questions I normally ask towards the end of the interview is, and I know this is a difficult question to answer. If you
started, I'm glad I didn't choose anything longer. I hope I'm not out smoking you.
Oh, no, not at all. You had mentioned bucket list cigars. If you had to nail down like maybe 2 or 3 of some of your favorite cigars, do you have any of those that fit in that category?
Well, I do. We have a video. This is, not to shamelessly plug, there's 13 of you guys watching. If you guys don't all go subscribe to the Kirby Allison YouTube channel, I'm going to be offended. Subscribe to, youtube.com/Kirby Allison. Go to KirbyAllison.com if you're a tie-wearing, comrade. I'd say that 2 of my favorite cigars at the moment, and they're so far up there that I'm having trouble holding on to them.
Okay.
Is the El Rey de Mundo La Reina, which is an LE for Great Britain in 2019. It's a Lancero.
Okay.
This thing is one of the most amazing cigars I've ever smoked. I mean, it is unbelievable.
Okay.
And the other one, coincidentally, is another El Rey de Mundo. It is the Contiki, which was a regional for the Andes, which is, kind of like lower Central America. I mean, it's not Central American proper. It's like northern South America, And this is a 109, right? So it is basically a Lusitania with the kind of the 109, which is a tapered head. It's not quite a bellicoso, right? So it's not almost torpedo-like, but it has a beautiful kind of shape to it. And again, it's a long smoke. It's beautiful. It's mellow. It's very well balanced. But just and people think I'm so weird whenever I say this, but the mouthfeel, to me, of that cigar is one of the best I've ever had.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll show you another cigar.
Yeah.
That is a bucket list cigar that I've yet to smoke. I'm holding it for a special occasion.
Definitely. Do you mind turning the light up just? And I think it's interesting with bucket list cigars because there are definitely ones that you hear of or that you want to try, and the fact that you have one in your hands, that's an awesome situation.
These are special occasion cigars, I suppose. So This is, I'll share this first before I really kind of build up to what is truly my holy grail cigar. I have it here.
Okay.
Haven't smoked it yet. You guys can all help me get there tonight. So this is a Partagas Lusitania Grand Reserva, right? So that's kind of
okay
there.
Yeah.
Camera, that's kind of weird. So again, I mean, this was a gift from the Sahakians. I don't think I could afford this cigar. I mean, this is literally like a $300 or $400 cigar. I mean, it's absolutely absurd whenever you think about what this is. But this is one of Cuba's, Grand Reservas, which is like the best of the best of the best.
Okay.
And this is, I mean, a format that to me, I mean, if I'm smoking this cigar, it better be a damn special occasion.
Yes.
All evening. Which to me is whenever I think of like pinnacle cigars, I mean, you kind of want to really savor that and enjoy it forever. I've smoked one of these before. I think I smoked one on one of my last birthdays.
Okay.
In Paris, at my club in Paris, the Travelers Club, which is quite literally the greatest place on earth to smoke cigar. And it just was amazing. It was a gift from a friend.
Okay.
Phenomenal cigar.
Okay. Yeah.
Constantly having to relight those things because I'm talking too much.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Sorry to make you talk so much.
So before I share this next one, why don't you share one of yours and then I'll finish.
Sure. So coincidentally enough, one of my bucket list cigars that I did get a hold of and I've yet to smoke, and this is more of a bucket list on the sense of what I've heard from it, and accessibility, more of having the ability to travel or not. And maybe you've smoked it before, but is the Cohiba Siglo 6. Recently that was gifted to me, and again, it'll be a special occasion situation, but I have not smoked it.
That's a great cigar. I have had the privilege of smoking one. I'm generally not a Cohiba fan because I find them like slightly inaccessible, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Definitely. And so that's on the list.
So when are you going to smoke it? Like, that's the next question.
Well, with that is kind of leads into the second question is more of, I mean, as you say, well, it was on one of your birthdays and it's kind of an occasional thing. There's a school of thought to where it's like any cigar should be smoked at any time or some are on the occasion. For me, I typically lean towards the occasion side because I want it to be special in the experience that I'm having. If you were to have like, aside from desert island cigar or bucket list cigar, what is your ideal like occasion or environment to have a special cigar? If you had to like, just name, okay, I want it, if it was this environment, I was at this location with maybe this drink, this is what would probably enter my mind.
That's a difficult question. I'll travel with several cigars, and if I'm traveling, so there's this idea of like a space of possibility, right? Which a space of possibility is creating a space of possibility where a pinnacle moment may occur, right?
Okay.
And you don't you can't create pinnacle moments. Pinnacle moments really just happen, right? But you can kind of like pick up that, pinnacle moment. So there's pinnacle moments happen more often in certain environments, right? So kind of question, so for me, there's probably 3 different characteristics that I find, correlate with pinnacle moments more than others. One of them is good friends, good company, right? So, being with certain friends, everything just kind of adds up. It's a perfect moment for a pinnacle cigar.
Yeah.
The second one is being in a really special place, right? So my club in Paris is a really special place to smoke a cigar. And with the right company and the right mood can produce that pinnacle moment. Being in London with the Sahakians is another experience, that can create that pinnacle moment. The third one, and I'd say that this is the easiest, most easily recreated or controlled, is nature, really, to be honest.
Okay.
A great evening with a nice cool breeze. You can hear the leaves, the wind kind of blowing through the leaves. Or being someplace that connects me with nature, whether it be on a nice lake, in front of the ocean, on a farm with a beautiful night sky, in a backyard, just with the a nice breeze blowing through the trees. I mean, that to me creates that pinnacle moment where I'm just, you know, with the right cigar, I'm like, this is the moment for that.
Yeah.
So those are, I mean, of course, all the celebratory things. So the next cigar I'll kind of share is a holy grail cigar that I think touches on so many different things. All right, so I'm going to provide a little bit of suspense.
Pausing for effect.
Because I don't want that to go out. So this is a pinnacle cigar for several reasons. So this is the Edmundo Dante Exclusivo de Mexico. This is the 109. So this is the first regional of Mexico. There's only been 3. The second one I smoked on New Year's in like 2012 or I don't know, like 2016 or something.
Okay.
With the Conde 54. And it blew me away. This was like one of the most amazing cigars. A lot of it was the moment and the experience, but the cigar was fucking incredible. And so after smoking that, I started kind of Googling like how that cigar came about. Well, you know, Maximilian Gutman is basically the exclusive importer of Cuban cigars to Mexico. My wife's from Mexico City, right? So that's kind of I found this at a cigar shop in Polanco. And he was the one that basically founded La Casa del Habano, right?
Really?
He opened the first La Casa del Habano. It was in Mexico. Now, Cuba has since, you know, taken that global, right? So I go on an interest on that. But the fact that he did that, I think, pegs him as someone with, I would imagine, special access within kind of Habanos, right?
Right.
And so this 109, right? So it's got that 109 tapered head. It's the same tapered head of the Contiquis that I enjoy so much. The Lusitania, right? It's a long smoke.
Yeah.
This is from, I think, 2011. Someone that's in front of a computer can Google that and let me know if I'm misquoting that. And so this was his first one. And there's an article. If you Google this gentleman's name, you can read. It was a Cigar Aficionado article, probably about this cigar. And what he said, the reason he loved Lusitanias as his kind of format of choice was going back to this idea that whenever you smoke a cigar, it's something that you really are committing to a moment in time. And Lusitanias are long smokes, right? So inevitably, you're smoking a Lusitania, whatever that commitment is 2 hours. It's a nice long smoke. And so that was kind of what really, I think, first catalyzed or kind of catapulted me or into this idea of exploring longer format cigars. I was like, wow, there really is something to that. So let me start experimenting with some longer format cigars. I mean, my first cabinet of 50 Lusitanias, the Partagas Lusitanias, I bought from Eddie Sahakian in London. I mean, it was the most I'd ever spent on a box of cigars. I mean, I was sweating. Yeah. Buying that. It's a cabinet of 50, which is my favorite kind of box size because you never really feel like you're running out of a cabinet of 50.
Right.
Whereas a box of 25, I'm 3 cigars in. I'm like, well, shit, I can't smoke anymore. I'm almost out.
Yeah. On that front, I don't know if you've heard of a company. It's called United, but they released a cigar called Atabey. Are you familiar with the name? So it's a really interesting cigar. I would encourage you to take a look at it. United basically is run by a man named Alfonso, where he ages his cigars through 7 different cedars as a process. And his Atabey cigar is, a lot of the fillers are undisclosed. There's a lot of speculation that it's Cuban filler, but it's released here in the States. And it's this very like mild but rich flavored, like creamy floral cigar. Oddly enough, that this gentleman who created Atabey also does the graphic design for brands like Cohiba. And so people will look at this label and say, oh, well, he stole it from Cohiba. And it's like, no, he's the one who started that label process. You have that black with the holographic like boxes around. And it's really a special cigar. I mean, it's in the $50 to $60 range. But I encourage you to try it. It definitely seems like it would be maybe in your wheelhouse and definitely something to try.
you've got to put a special sampler pack together for me. And
Yeah. Next time we have you on the show,
send me the invoice link and let me pay it. I mean, I'd love to experiment and just discover more, kind of Central American cigars that you can buy here in the United States.
Yeah.
It's never been kind of in my wheelhouse.
Okay.
And it's not that, again, I go back, I'm not moral about it. Like,
right.
Only smoke Cuban cigars.
Right.
Because I think that's pretentious, but it's just been kind of my journey and kind of what's connected with me.
Yeah. It's finding really what it suits your palate, in different areas. And that can be whether Dominican or Nicaraguan or whatever. But now with your humidor, what would you, this is actually another question that I ask normally is, it seems like you're more of an occasional smoker. How many cigars a day do you think you average on?
That's the thing. I mean, I'd put it in terms of how many cigars. I think of it, how many cigars a year do I think I average?
Okay.
There's 12 months in a year, 52 weeks, right? So I'm not smoking, I'd say that, my rate of smoking has probably increased recently. Maybe it's COVID, right? Smoking more cigars.
Yeah.
But I'd be probably somewhere in the 30 to 50, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, it's a low number, right? Maybe it's increasing. I don't keep count. It's like, my wife says, what pairs of shoes do you own? It's like, why count? What's the point?
Yeah.
It's so I don't know. It's a good question.
Okay.
I feel like I easily have 1,000 cigars in this humidor back here.
Okay.
I don't feel like I have enough. I mean, every single time I open that thing up, I'm always really at a loss of what to smoke. And not because of a lack of choice, but because, there's just certain cigars I'm holding back on. I mean, I've got some Bolivar Corona Gigantes, right? I've got less than a box of those things left. They don't make them anymore. And it's like, when am I going to smoke that? Well, maybe I'll take one for a wedding. Maybe I'll take one to go hunting with my family. But that's a special occasion cigar.
Yeah.
My 109s, from the El Rey del Mundo. I mean, I've been giving those I've been giving them away, like mad because they're such great cigars. I want to share them with my friends.
Right.
Then whenever I look at my humidor, I'm like, well, shit. I mean, I'm probably 10 cigars into that box of 48 already.
Yeah.
So I don't grab that. I've got some Ramon Allones specially selected cigars. It's a Robusto. It comes in a cabinet of 50. If I'm going to smoke during the day, I probably go to that, right? Because it's a cabinet of 50. I've got plenty to smoke. I'm not worried about running out of my box.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of old Bolivar Royal Coronas and Belicosos Finos. I mean, I don't smoke those as often as I probably should. I've been making myself smoke them more because I've got so many. I don't know. I mean, I'm always at a loss. It's a really difficult. Whenever I go open my humidor, it's really moral dilemma.
Okay. Well, and I know too, if there's certain cigars that I've had that I'm like, oh, I really like this cigar, but I also want to see what it's going to be like in a couple of years. Then it's like I will put aside a designated number that I'm like, I don't really want to break into these yet because I want to see how they mature later on. And unfortunately, I mean, I know we had a question earlier of how long to age a cigar. I think certain cigars, different manufacturers have different peak moments. I've heard some people say between 3 and 5 years, but then again, you have some cigars coming out, as you said, early 90s. It really just kind of depends, but that's part of the journey is experimenting. Where do these peak years hit? What makes it better? Okay, this is when I see that this one started to fail a little bit. And to me, that's just really intriguing of learning what blends really kind of pop after age.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I've got a cigar I'll show you that I think might be past its peak. Humidor.
But and as I said, that's part of the fun is trying to figure out, okay, this worked, this doesn't work.
So this is a box I bought, and it was after a experience in Paris. I was in Paris at the club. I met this guy. He and I both shared a similar affinity for longer format cigars. And so it's the Sancho Panza, like Sancho or whatever.
Okay.
See that?
Yeah.
Here we go. So this box is from 2000.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And so I bought this from a guy that I buy a bunch of cigars to. This is an absolutely massive cigar. I mean, can you see that? It's like,
is that like an 8.5?
Let's measure, because this thing is like, this is a long cigar. This is 9.
9. Okay.
9-inch cigar. It's probably a 42 ring gauge.
Okay. All right.
Right. And I'd say that I've only smoked, let's see, I've only probably smoked 3 of these. And generally, I feel like I've been disappointed, right?
Okay.
Just, I don't know, lacking flavor. I don't know. I mean, I think a little bit past its age.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I was speaking to Eddie about this, and he said, you know what? Hold on to the cigars, and maybe in another 10 years or 5 or 10 years, like it comes into kind of like a second.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to call it second fermentation, right? Because that's
right. But I get your meaning. Yeah.
It kind of comes back into itself in a different way.
Yeah. I've had, and I mean, not to really call any brands out, but I've had similar, like with Opus X, to where I felt like, oh, really, this aged too far. Like it's not as rich as the first time I smoked it or such like that. But it is true. They transition through time and such like that.
And I've never smoked an Opus X, right? I mean, I'd love to try an Opus X sometime.
Yeah.
I don't even know where you find those things here, to be totally honest.
It's kind of like what shop has them or what online vendor has them. And I haven't smoked really too many, though. I will say, out of my experience, Fuente's release of God of Fire was more my palate. The God of Fire is a pretty good cigar.
How would you describe your palate?
My palate would be more in the probably medium plus to full. I like.
And I feel like if you're anyone that's smoking cigars, like I've got some Davidoff number 2s, right? Some cigars, they're way too mild for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're great cigars for friends, very approachable. But for anyone that has a developed palate, it's just lacking complexity.
Right.
And I bought several boxes with the idea of aging them, and I got in a few in, and I was like, oh, this was a mistake.
Yeah. No, I feel like really with the American market, unfortunately, there's this craze of like, how hard will it kick me in the teeth? How hard is it going to punch? And for me, I like that strength, but I want the complexity behind it. I want there not to sacrifice flavor for strength. And so a cigar that really hits it home for me is kind of that balances that both. It can even be in the medium range, but if you're having those complexities of different flavors with a bit of strength behind it, it's definitely where I fall.
Yeah. So like if you were to walk into your humidor and get a cigar that's kind of new production, right? So, the stuff in your humidor, I mean, you haven't aged it. You want to sell sell cigars, turn the inventory, right? So if you were to walk in and buy a cigar to smoke today, where would you go?
That is a good question. I definitely think that I have favorites, and some of those favorites would be like, one would be actually AJ Fernandez's interpretation of the Ramoneones. It uses medio tiempo tobacco, which is like really rich in volcanic soil. So it's got this like richness behind it. The construction is flawless. I've never picked up one of those cigars and been like, oh man, this is tight or it's tunneling. The construction's on point, and you have the strength behind it with this really like rich Nicaraguan flavor to it. Another good one too is we brought in. It's a smaller company. It's called Paul Stulak. And he released a cigar called the El Nuevo Comienzo, which is a Mexican San Andreas Maduro. And it's somewhat rustic. It's got really like heavy espresso chocolate notes. And this is one of those cigars I smoke it, and I'm like, I love this cigar. I also would love to see this in 2 years. And so a large portion of what I pick up and smoke is something that I would want to revisit later, B, I can count on, and C is see the potential of what that might be in a few years from now. So that's really where I normally land.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so my next question is a very refined palate, as I'm sure you have, certainly more refined than mine. Talk to me a little bit about, like, whenever you're smoking a cigar, what are you looking for? Like, what is it that you're tasting? I mean, what is it that, like, if you were to describe a cigar, how would you describe that?
So we recently did
very broad question.
No. It's a good question.
Make it specific in a particular.
Yeah. So we recently did a tasting night of EP Carrillo's The Pledge, and so when you look at the cigar, it's about appearance. It's about, as you've kind of said, mouthfeel, and it's about flavor. So the appearance is very oily. It kind of promises this like sheen of richness and almost sugars on the tobacco. When you dry draw that cigar, it's like toasted almonds. There's a specific flavor that hits your palate that is very unique to that blend, but it's also very full. When you light it up, you have this complexity of this like cocoa and this caramel with hints of pepper and as well sweetness. And so it's kind of hitting, I think there's 7 points of the palate, and it's trying to hit certain points at the same time to bring you basically a satisfying experience, to kind of hit those points of the palate and kind of like it'll stick in your mind. I remember this cigar, it had these flavors, and then the experience also enhances. So that's typically when I first test the cigar, it's trying to hit those points. And
you can differentiate 7 points on your palate?
I would say for me, and again, it boils down to preference, but I try to basically clear my mind of any like preconceived notions that I may have. And it starts with, like I say, that appearance, and then that dry draw, and then the lighting, and kind of how does this all come together, and how does my brain perceive what it is that I'm tasting? And that's kind of what I'm looking for. If a cigar is, well, it has an appearance, I light it up, it's not really leaving any impressions. I'm getting maybe one note. Its strength isn't much, smoke production isn't much. Then it's not really going to leave that lasting, that lingering thought on my mind. So that's typically how I judge a cigar when I try it for the first time.
And remind me what you're smoking now.
Right now, it is the Aquitaine. This is the company called Romacraft, and actually they're based in Austin, Texas. They are one of the first pioneers of this like craft brewing style of cigars. So they bring this like unique, when they have, let's say, a bale of tobacco, when you're purchasing tobacco for your cigar blend, a lot of companies will say, I want a brand that fills, let's say, we'll call it the Malibu line. So give me a taste feel that will represent Malibu. With them they are more like, we found this tobacco. It has these signatures to it. It has this flavor profile. Let's build on this. Let's refine this. And then we'll come up with the brand later. So for the Aquitaine, it's an Ecuadorian Habano. It has deep notes of like coffee and caramel. Like I think of it as if you have like a caramel latte with a bit more like strength in the coffee side. So it brings this full experience and fills your mouth with those flavors. So I'll smoke it and like it pairs well with bourbon. Or I'm also thinking like it'd probably pair well with like a latte or like a creamed coffee or something like that. So it's a really rich experience.
What are you tasting right now?
Right now, I would say it's more of that caramel side. There's a bit of the darker coffee coming forward as I'm coming to the last third. Some of the sweetness is kind of taking more of a back seat, and I'm getting more of those like earthy espresso with a hint of caramelness on the back.
Cheers to you. I envy the sophistication of that palate.
But again,
and the guys that are watching, what do they? How much detail do they get kind of in their smoking? For me, it's like in full disclosure, I probably have the palate of a third grader. I enjoy the experience of smoking a cigar. I enjoy the ritual. I enjoy the relaxation.
Okay.
I enjoy the camaraderie. But it's like, to me, it's so binary. I don't know. It's like I need to go to a cigar tasting course or something. I need to do more tastings with you. You need to send me some cigars, Eric.
Definitely.
You can help refine my palate.
Definitely. I mean, and that's part of the fun is to open the portfolio. And unfortunately for me, when I say, okay, I'm medium plus to full, sometimes it'll turn me off to other things that I might want to try. I'm also very big on visual, to my detriment. So there are many cigars that I have passed by because I'm like, I don't like the look of that label. And then someone will give it to me and then I'll smoke it. I'm like, oh my gosh, how have I missed this cigar for so long? It's because of my own preconceived notions of it.
Yeah, that's a challenge. I mean, it's probably the same blind spot I kind of fall into with Cubans, right? I mean, I bet you that someone like you could come in overnight, take all my Cubans out of my humidor, replace them with, cigars you sell in your shop, and I'd be just as happy and enjoy them just as much.
All right. Well, with that said, send me your address. I will send you a sampler pack for you to try a few things and see where we go from there. Because what would be really cool is eventually somewhere in history, somewhere down the line, to do this again and hear your opinions of some of the cigars that you were sent. Because obviously they're not all going to hit that point, right? There's going to... Sorry?
Not history yet. We got to...
Yes.
Make it history. But yeah, I mean, do that. I mean, I think that's interesting. It's one of the things that's fun about smoking cigars is experiencing different things. And I have to say, I mean, my humidor, with the exception of my Davidoffs, is really probably almost exclusively Cuban.
Okay.
And that's just been my affinity. It's what I'm drawn towards.
Yeah.
I mean, the friends I buy cigars from primarily deal in Cubans, and that's just kind of been how it's been. So
right. Well, I would like to thank you for joining us.
Kirby. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to you and learning a bit about the fashion world and the Cuban cigar world and even the Scotch and martini world as well.
I'm on my 2 martini Kirby. I'm just now getting lit, so fun's about to begin. But anyway, a great evening. And everyone watching, I mean, please go visit KirbyAllison.com. It's how we support everything we do on our YouTube channel. And then, I mean, we're not cigar experts. Look, you're a cigar expert. I'm just a cigar enjoyer. I enjoy cigars. We've got some cigar content on the channel. Our channel is less about me as an expert, which I really wouldn't ever say I am. And it's more about kind of helping people like you and helping passionate craftspeople really articulate and share their expertise with other people. And so we've got some great videos with the Sahakians. I mean, our How to Smoke a Cigar with Eddie Sahakian, I think, has like 1.5 million views.
Yeah. And I think that's honestly how I found your channel, was that very video. And it's cool to see those worlds cross, is that you have, for me, is researching and looking into different cigars and different experiences and finding you through that way, and then learning about the entire world that your channel encompasses.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, not to continue to draw this out, sorry for everyone watching, but I think it's an interesting kind of cultural differentiation between, I don't want to say London and America, but it's like one of the things I really enjoy about kind of old world smoking is the fact that it's done with a certain degree of peripheral accoutrement, if you will.
Yeah.
Really, I don't want to say with elegance, but I will. It's done in beautiful places, wearing great clothes with great people.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I see with the American market is it's more about, I mean, not that it shouldn't be, right, but it's more about the product. And it's different. It's very American. It's a very American perspective enjoyment of cigars. And so I like to think that we offer an interesting counterpoint to that. I don't want to call it right. It's probably very wrong, to be completely honest. but it's different. So to anyone that's watching, I'd say, try it out, see what you think. We should have a night where everyone dresses up in a suit and tie and smokes a cigar.
So we already did. We already did. We actually, our last tasting night, we took the pledge, which was Rated Cigar Aficionado's Cigar of the Year, and then we paired it with a cognac, and we told everyone, okay, go ahead and dress up and make it more of an occasion. We have some events. When we started very small scale. We had like 11 people to attend, but to gain access to the evening, you at least had to be in a button-up, a tie, basically a suit. So there's a picture of us lined up. It was about a year and a half ago, and in our train car, our humidor is in a 1913 train car, so it lends itself to that vintage aspect. And a picture of us in front of the humidor, and it's just a great experience.
Well, that sounds like my cup of tea. So we need to do one of these virtually.
Yes.
Allow me to pipe in via the phone or something. If you're ever in Dallas, please come smoke with us. I'm working on a new studio / smoking lounge.
Okay.
I'm installing what is going to be my kind of I don't want to call it I don't know what the word would be. I don't want to call it life's work, because that's not it, but it's
close to a magnum opus.
It's a pet project of mine, which is
okay.
Ultimate cigar filtration unit or experience. I mean, one of my greatest goals in life, this is a bucket list item, is to be able to smoke at home.
Okay.
My wife's never going to allow me to smoke at home with the house smells like ashtray.
Yeah.
That, with good air filtration, you can smoke at home, and tomorrow morning, no one's really going to know about it. And so I'm working on what I'm convinced will be one of the best smoke filtration systems that's really ever been put together.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to see how that comes to fruition, and see the end result of that for sure.
So thank you. Everyone watching, please, buy a tie from Kirby Allison. Where subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out some of our videos on cigar content.
Definitely.
And anyway, Eric, thank you so much for inviting me on and for allowing me to enjoy this time with you. And, with so many things, it's been great to meet virtually, but hopefully we have the opportunity to smoke a cigar and enjoy one another's company in person.
Definitely. For sure. And for those watching, if you have the opportunity, go and click on the link in this video. Go to our website, pick up the sampler for tonight. The Aquitaine is a phenomenal cigar, or even join the Cigar Society that is just launched. So thank you, Kirby, for joining us. And yes, I look forward to, at some point, sharing a cigar together.
Yeah. Cheers. Thank you, Eric. Best to you. And thanks for having me on.
Definitely. You take it easy. Thanks so much.